Have you ever felt completely broken inside while everyone around you thinks you're perfectly fine? Have you ever sat in a crowded room, surrounded by people, yet felt utterly alone? If you're listening to this right now, chances are you're searching for something: peace, healing, or maybe just a moment of relief from the storm raging inside your mind. Welcome to Echoes of Dharma. I'm here to tell you something that might change everything. You don't need anyone else to heal. You don't need a therapist, a guru, or even a best friend to fix what's broken inside you. The power to heal yourself has been within you all along. But here's what I want you to think about right now. When was the last time you truly sat with your pain without trying to escape it? Most of us spend our entire lives running from discomfort. We scroll through our phones when we feel lonely. We binge watch shows when we feel anxious. We keep ourselves so busy that we never have to face what's really going on inside. What if I told you that this very avoidance is what's keeping you stuck? What would change in your life if you stopped believing that someone else held the key to your happiness? Today, we're going on a journey together through ancient Zen Buddhist wisdom and timeless stories that have helped countless souls find peace for over 500 years. But this isn't just about learning philosophy. This is about you discovering something profound about your own capacity for healing. So take a deep breath and let yourself settle into this moment. Notice how it feels to give yourself permission to stop running, to stop seeking, to stop trying to fix yourself. Because here's the truth that might surprise you: you were never broken to begin with. Our first story takes us back over 1,000 years to ancient China, where a young monk was about to discover something that would change his entire relationship with being human. Have you ever felt completely broken inside while everyone around you thinks you're perfectly fine? Have you ever sat in a crowded room, surrounded by people, yet felt utterly alone? If you're listening to this right now, chances are you're searching for something: peace, healing, or maybe just a moment of relief from the storm raging inside your mind. Welcome to Echoes of Dharma. I'm here to tell you something that might change everything. You don't need anyone else to heal. You don't need a therapist, a guru, or even a best friend to fix what's broken inside you. The power to heal yourself has been within you all along. But here's what I want you to think about right now. When was the last time you truly sat with your pain without trying to escape it? Most of us spend our entire lives running from discomfort. We scroll through our phones when we feel lonely. We binge watch shows when we feel anxious. We keep ourselves so busy that we never have to face what's really going on inside. What if I told you that this very avoidance is what's keeping you stuck? What would change in your life if you stopped believing that someone else held the key to your happiness? Today, we're going on a journey together through ancient Zen Buddhist wisdom and timeless stories that have helped countless souls find peace for over 500 years. But this isn't just about learning philosophy. This is about you discovering something profound about your own capacity for healing. So take a deep breath and let yourself settle into this moment. Notice how it feels to give yourself permission to stop running, to stop seeking, to stop trying to fix yourself. Because here's the truth that might surprise you: you were never broken to begin with. Our first story takes us back over 1,000 years to ancient China, where a young monk was about to discover something that would change his entire relationship with being human. In ancient China, there lived a young monk named Chen, who came to the famous Zen master Yunmen with a heart full of anguish. Chen had lost his entire family in a terrible flood, and the weight of grief was crushing him. He knelt before the master, tears streaming down his face, and pleaded, "Master, I am broken. The pain inside me is unbearable. How can I make it stop?" Master Yunmen looked at the young monk with compassion and picked up a beautiful ceramic teacup from his table. Without warning, he dropped it. The cup shattered into countless pieces on the stone floor. "Master," Chen cried out, "why did you break such a beautiful cup?" Yunmen smiled gently. "Tell me, young monk, are you sad about this cup?" "Yes, Master, it was so beautiful, and now it's destroyed." "But the cup was already broken," Yunmen replied. "From the moment it was made, it carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. The breaking was always there, waiting. I simply revealed what was always true." Now pause for a moment and think about this. When did your suffering really begin? Was it with your last heartbreak? Your last failure? Or has there always been this underlying sense that something wasn't quite right? That you weren't quite enough? That life wasn't quite what you expected it to be? This story illustrates what Buddha called dukkha, the first noble truth. Dukkha is often translated as suffering, but it's much deeper than that. It's the fundamental dissatisfaction that exists in all human experience. It's that restless feeling that follows you wherever you go, no matter how much success you achieve or how many problems you solve. Think about your own life for a moment. Haven't you noticed that even when everything seems to be going well, there's still something missing? Even when you get the job you wanted, the relationship you dreamed of, the house you saved for, there's still that nagging sense of incompleteness. This isn't because you're ungrateful or broken. This is dukkha, the natural result of being human in a world where everything is constantly changing. Your suffering is like this cup. Yunmen continued to Chen. You believe your pain began when your family died, but suffering was always part of your existence. What you call broken is simply the human condition revealing itself. In Zen Buddhism, we understand that this suffering isn't a mistake in the universe. It's not a punishment or a sign that something is wrong with us. It's actually pointing us towards something profound. The first noble truth tells us that suffering exists, but here's what most people miss. Suffering isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. But here's where most of us get it wrong. We spend our entire lives trying to eliminate suffering instead of learning from it. We think happiness means the absence of pain. So we exhaust ourselves trying to create perfect conditions. We avoid difficult conversations, numb uncomfortable emotions, and constantly seek distractions from anything that feels challenging. What if I told you that this very strategy is what keeps you trapped? What if the way out of suffering isn't around it, but through it? Young Chen spent many months contemplating the broken cup. Gradually, he began to understand something that changed everything. His resistance to grief was causing him more pain than the grief itself. He was suffering because he was fighting against what was already happening in his life. He was at war with reality itself. Think about this in your own life. When you're in pain, how much of that pain is the actual situation, and how much is your fight against the situation? When you're lonely, how much of the suffering is the loneliness itself, and how much is your anger at being lonely? When you're anxious, how much is the actual anxiety, and how much is your anxiety about being anxious? This insight is at the heart of Zen teaching. The great master Huangbo once said, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." Chen was rejecting his reality, constantly thinking about how things should be different, rather than accepting what actually was. But here's where the healing begins. When Chen stopped fighting his grief and instead sat with it, something miraculous happened. The grief didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became a doorway to understanding the preciousness of life itself. In Zen, we call this accepting what is, not passive resignation, but active engagement with reality as it presents itself. When we stop wasting energy fighting against what's already here, we free up tremendous power for actual transformation. Chen began to see that his grief wasn't a problem to be solved, but a message to be received. It was telling him how deeply he had loved his family. It was showing him the incredible capacity of the human heart to care, to connect, to feel the full spectrum of existence. His pain became a testament to his love, not evidence of his brokenness. I want you to imagine this for yourself. What would happen if you stopped trying to fix your sadness and instead got curious about it? What would change if you stopped fighting your anxiety and started investigating what it's trying to tell you? What if your loneliness isn't a problem to be solved, but a message to be received? This is what suffering is really trying to teach us. It's not trying to destroy us. It's trying to wake us up. It's showing us where we're clinging too tightly, where we're demanding that life be different than it is, where we're trying to control things that are beyond our control. Think about your deepest pain right now. What if it's not a sign that something is wrong with you, but a sign that something is right with you? What if it's proof that you care deeply, that you love fully, that you're capable of being touched by life? But Chen's journey was just beginning. Once we accept that suffering is part of life, we often make another mistake. We start looking for someone else to save us from it. We think if we can just find the right teacher, the right partner, the right path, someone will finally be able to take away our pain forever. This leads us to perhaps the most dangerous illusion of all, the belief that healing comes from outside ourselves. 6 months after his initial breakthrough, Chen returned to Master Yunmen with a new question burning in his heart. "Master, I have accepted my grief, but I still feel empty inside. Surely there must be someone who can fill this emptiness, a teacher, a friend, a spiritual guide, who can complete what I lack." Master Yunmen smiled knowingly. "Ah, young monk, you remind me of another student who came to Master Joshu many years ago with the same question. Let me tell you his story. There once was an earnest seeker named Wei who traveled across all of China, visiting every famous temple and teacher he could find. He studied with the most renowned masters, learned countless meditation techniques, and collected spiritual teachings like precious gems. Yet with each new teacher, his sense of emptiness only grew deeper. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you thought that the next book, the next course, the next relationship, the next achievement would finally make you feel complete? How many times have you believed that someone out there held the missing piece to your puzzle? Finally, Wei arrived at Master Joshu's temple, exhausted and desperate. He prostrated himself before the ancient master and cried out, "Master Joshu, I have sought everywhere for someone who can save me from this terrible emptiness inside. Please, you are my last hope. Can you fill what I lack?" Master Joshu looked at Wei with eyes that seemed to see through time itself. "Tell me," he said quietly, "who is it that feels empty?" Wei was confused. I am empty, Master. I am the one who suffers." "Bring me this one who is empty," Joshu commanded. "Show me this person who suffers." Wei looked around frantically, searching for something to point to. I am here, Master. I am sitting before you. Yes, I see a body sitting. I hear a voice speaking. Joshu nodded. But where is this one who is empty? Can you point to it? Can you hold it in your hands? For the first time in his years of seeking, Wei became completely silent. He searched within himself, looking for this one that felt empty, this self that needed to be filled. But the more he looked, the more he realized something shocking. He could not find it anywhere. Now, I want you to do the same thing Wei did. Right now, as you're listening to this, ask yourself, who is listening? Can you find the listener? Can you point to the one who feels sad, or lonely, or incomplete? Look for this one who needs healing. Where is it exactly? Master, Wei whispered, I cannot find this one who is empty. Joshu smiled, the gentle smile of recognition. If you cannot find the one who is empty, then who needs to be filled? If you cannot locate the one who suffers, then who needs to be saved? This story illustrates what Buddha called the second arrow. When we experience pain of the first arrow, we often cause ourselves additional suffering by our reaction to that pain of the second arrow. Wei was shooting second arrows at himself constantly, always believing that salvation existed somewhere else, with someone else, in some other teaching. This is one of the most dangerous myths of our time, the belief that healing comes from outside ourselves. We live in a culture that constantly tells us that the solution to our problems lies in external things: the right teacher, the right partner, the right therapy, the right spiritual practice. But Zen Buddhism teaches us something radically different. The Buddha himself was a prince who had access to the greatest teachers and wisdom traditions of his time, yet he was deeply unsatisfied. His great insight was that external authorities cannot provide lasting peace. This doesn't mean we should reject all guidance or teachings. It means we should understand where true liberation actually comes from. Wei's transformation began when he stopped looking for someone to complete him and started investigating the very nature of incompleteness itself. Master Joshu didn't give him answers, he gave him the right questions to ask himself. In your own life, notice how often you look outside yourself for validation, for answers, for peace. Notice how often you think, if only this person would love me, if only I had that job, if only I could find the right teacher, then I would finally be happy. This seeking itself becomes a form of suffering. In Zen, there's a famous saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. This shocking statement doesn't mean literal violence, of course. It means that even the Buddha, the ultimate spiritual authority, cannot save you from outside yourself. Any external savior, no matter how wise or powerful, is ultimately pointing you back to your own inherent completeness. Wei began to understand that he had been looking for someone or something to complete him, to make him whole. But wholeness isn't something you achieve. It's something you recognize. You were born whole. Life circumstances may have covered up that wholeness, but they cannot destroy it. Think about this deeply. What if you're not broken and in need of fixing? What if you're not incomplete and in need of filling? What if the very idea that something is missing is itself the illusion that keeps you trapped in endless seeking? The great Zen master, Dogen, taught that practice is enlightenment. We don't practice meditation to become enlightened someday in the future. We practice to realize the enlightenment that is already present in this moment. Similarly, we don't heal to become whole. We heal to remember the wholeness that was never actually lost. Wei's journey of self-discovery wasn't always easy. There were moments when he desperately wanted to run back to his old pattern of seeking salvation outside himself. The mind loves to have projects, loves to have something to fix or achieve. But gradually, he began to find a different kind of peace. Not the peace of having found the perfect teacher, but the peace of needing no teacher at all. This doesn't mean Wei became arrogant or stopped learning. It means he understood that any true teaching could only point him back to what he already was. Any genuine teacher could only help him recognize what was already present. I want you to feel this in your own experience right now. Stop looking for a moment. Stop seeking. Stop trying to get somewhere or become someone. Just be here, exactly as you are. Notice that in this moment of not seeking, there's already a natural peace present. You're not broken. You're not incomplete. You're not missing anything essential. This recognition that you are already whole is not the end of growth or learning. It's the beginning of true transformation. When you stop trying to fix yourself, you free up enormous energy for actually living. When you stop seeking completion outside yourself, you discover the completeness that was always here. Young Chen listened to this story with growing wonder. "But Master," he asked, "if I don't need anyone else to heal, then what about the pain that still comes? What about the sadness that still visits me? Even when I accept my wholeness, everything keeps changing. My moods change, my circumstances change, even my understanding changes. How do I find peace in a world that never stays the same?" Master Yunmen's eyes twinkled. "Ah, now you're asking the right question. Let me tell you about the nature of impermanence and how a single autumn leaf taught one monk the secret of flowing with life instead of fighting against it." Master Yunmen continued. "There was once a young monk named Taro who came to the great master Ikkyu during the autumn season. Taro was tormented by the impermanence of life. Everything he loved seemed to slip through his fingers like water. His parents had aged, his childhood home had been sold, and even his own body was changing in ways he couldn't control. "Master Ikkyu," Taro pleaded, "how can I find peace when everything I cherish is constantly disappearing? How can I be happy when nothing lasts? I try to hold on to good moments, but they always fade. I try to avoid painful experiences, but they keep coming. It feels like I'm drowning in an ocean of constant change." Think about this in your own life. How much energy do you spend trying to make good times last forever? How often do you find yourself saying, "I wish this moment would never end"? Or "Why can't things just stay the way they are"? How much of your suffering comes from fighting against the natural flow of life? Master Ikkyu was sitting in his garden, watching the autumn leaves fall. He picked up a single golden leaf that had just dropped from a maple tree and held it up to the light. "Tell me, young monk," he said, "is this leaf dead or alive?" Taro looked at the leaf, confused. "It has fallen from the tree, Master. It is dead." "But look at its color," Ikkyu replied. "See how it glows in the sunlight. Look at the intricate patterns of its veins. Feel its texture. Smell its earthiness. Is there not life in this moment of its existence?" Taro examined the leaf more closely. Indeed, it was beautiful, perhaps more beautiful than when it was green and attached to the tree. I'm not sure, Master. This leaf was never meant to cling to the branch forever," Ikkyu explained. "Its beauty lies not in its permanence, but in its willingness to let go. When it was green, it knew its purpose. When it turned golden, it accepted its transformation. When it fell, it embraced its journey back to the earth. At each stage, it was completely itself. This brings us to one of the most profound teachings in all of Buddhism, impermanence or anicca. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. This truth is both the source of our deepest suffering and our greatest hope for healing. We suffer because we want things to be permanent that cannot be permanent. We want our loved ones to live forever. We want happy moments to last eternally. We want painful experiences to end immediately. But life doesn't work that way. Life is constantly flowing, constantly changing, constantly moving from one moment to the next. But Master, Taro said, if everything changes and nothing lasts, how can we find any meaning in life? Ikkyu smiled and gently placed the leaf in Taro's palm. The leaf finds its meaning not in lasting forever, but in fully being what it is in each moment. When it was part of the tree, it was completely a growing leaf. When it changed color, it was completely a changing leaf. When it fell, it was completely a falling leaf. It never tried to be something other than what it was. In Zen, we have a beautiful metaphor for this. Life is like a river. You cannot step into the same river twice because the water is always flowing. Similarly, you cannot live the same moment twice because life is always changing. The person you were when you started listening to this is not exactly the same person you are now. Every breath has changed you. Every word has moved you forward in time. Now, this might sound frightening at first, but it's actually incredibly liberating. It means that no matter how much pain you're experiencing right now, it will change. It means that no matter how stuck you feel, movement is possible. It means that no matter how broken you think you are, healing is already beginning. Think about a difficult time in your past. Maybe it was a heartbreak, a loss, a failure that felt like it would destroy you. At the time, it probably felt permanent, like you would never recover. But here you are now, changed by that experience but not destroyed by it. The pain that once felt eternal has transformed into wisdom, compassion, or strength. Taro discovered this truth in a powerful way. As he sat with the autumn leaf, he began to notice something extraordinary. The leaf was continuing to change even as he held it. Its color was deepening, its edges were curling, its moisture was evaporating. It was still alive, still transforming, still moving through its natural cycle. Suddenly, Taro realized that his grief about impermanence was actually a form of attachment. He was clinging to the idea that things should last forever, that change was the enemy of happiness. But Master Ikkyu was showing him something different. Change is not the enemy of life, it is life itself. The great Zen teacher, Suzuki Roshi, once said, "Each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." This paradox captures the essence of impermanence. You are already complete and perfect in this moment, and you are also continuously changing and growing. Both truths exist simultaneously. I want you to feel this in your own experience right now. Notice that even as you're listening to these words, you're breathing in and breathing out. Your heart is beating. Your thoughts are flowing. Your understanding is deepening. You are not the same person you were 5 minutes ago, and you won't be the same person 5 minutes from now. This constant change isn't threatening your identity. It is your identity. Taro began to understand that his resistance to change was causing him more suffering than the change itself. He was like someone trying to hold back the tide, exhausting himself fighting against the natural flow of existence. When he finally let go and allowed himself to flow with the changes in his life, he discovered something remarkable. Change wasn't destroying his peace, it was revealing it. In Zen meditation, we learn to sit with whatever arises without trying to change it or make it permanent. We watch thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. We notice sensations arise and pass away like waves in the ocean. We learn to be the space in which all experiences happen, rather than identifying with any particular experience. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent to life. It means we learn to engage fully with each moment while holding it lightly. We love deeply while knowing that everything is temporary. We commit wholeheartedly while remaining flexible and adaptable. What would change in your life if you stopped trying to make good feelings permanent? What would shift if you stopped resisting difficult emotions and instead flowed with them? What if you could love without clinging, care without controlling, enjoy without grasping? Taro spent many months contemplating the autumn leaf. He carried it with him until it crumbled into dust. And even then, he understood that it had not disappeared. It had simply transformed again. The leaf had become part of the earth, which would nourish new growth in the spring. This insight transformed Taro's relationship with his own suffering. He began to see that his pain, like the leaf, was not permanent. It was part of a natural cycle of growth and transformation. His grief about losing his childhood home gave way to appreciation for the memories he carried. His anxiety about his aging parents transformed into gratitude for the time he still had with them. But perhaps most importantly, Taro discovered that he himself was like the autumn leaf, constantly changing, constantly transforming, constantly becoming something new. The person he had been yesterday was already gone, and the person he would be tomorrow had not yet arrived. All he had was this moment, this breath, this opportunity to be fully present to what was happening right now. Chen listened to this story with growing understanding. "Master," he said quietly, "I think I'm beginning to see, but there's still something I don't understand. If everything changes and nothing lasts, including my pain, then why do I still feel so lost sometimes? Why do I still feel like I'm not really living, like I'm always somewhere else in my mind?" Master Yunmen nodded approvingly. "Now you are asking the question that leads to the deepest teaching of all. Let me tell you about a master who discovered the secret of true presence, and how a simple cup of tea revealed the difference between existing and truly living." Master Yunmen settled back in his chair and continued. "There was once a restless student named Kenji who came to study with the gentle master Thich Nhat Hanh. Kenji was intelligent and dedicated, but he had a problem that plagued him constantly. His mind was never where his body was. When Kenji was eating, he was thinking about work. When he was working, he was worried about his relationships. When he was with friends, he was planning tomorrow's tasks. When he was trying to sleep, he was replaying conversations from earlier in the day. He lived everywhere except in the present moment. Master Kenji confessed one day, "I feel like I'm sleepwalking through my life. Days pass by in a blur. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I miss entire conversations because my mind is somewhere else. How can I wake up? How can I actually live instead of just exist?" Does this sound familiar to you? How often do you find yourself physically present but mentally absent? How many moments of your actual life do you miss because you're lost in thoughts about the past or future? How often do you eat a meal without tasting it, walk somewhere without seeing it, or have a conversation without really listening? Master Thich Nhat Hanh smiled and invited Kenji to join him for tea. But this would not be an ordinary tea ceremony. The master moved with extraordinary slowness and deliberation. He picked up the teapot as if it were the most precious object in the world. He poured the water as if each drop contained the entire universe. He lifted his cup as if this single moment was the most important moment that had ever existed. Kenji watched with growing impatience. "Master," he said, "why are you moving so slowly?" "It's just tea." Thich Nhat Hanh paused and looked at Kenji with infinite compassion. "Just tea?" he asked quietly. "In this tea is the rain that fell on the mountain. In this tea are the clouds that brought the rain. In this tea is the earth that nourished the tea plant. In this tea is the sun that helped it grow. In this tea are the hands that picked the leaves and the truck that brought them here. When I drink this tea, I am drinking the entire universe. How can this be just tea?" This is the essence of present moment awareness in Zen Buddhism. It's not about slowing down everything you do. It's about recognizing the infinite depth that exists in each ordinary moment. It's about understanding that this moment, right now, as you're listening to these words, is not a stepping stone to somewhere else. This moment is your life. Kenji was confused. "But Master, if I pay attention to every little thing like this, I'll never get anything done. Life will pass me by." Thich Nhat Hanh took a slow, mindful sip of his tea. "Tell me, young student, how can life pass you by when you are life? You speak as if life is a train you might miss. But you are not waiting for life. You are living it right now. The question is, are you present for it?" Think about this deeply. We spend so much time preparing for life, planning for life, worrying about life, that we forget we are actually living it right now. We think happiness exists somewhere in the future when we achieve our goals. We think peace will come when we solve our problems. We think fulfillment awaits us when we get to the right place with the right people. But what if all of that is already here, waiting for you to notice it? The master continued, "Kenji, where is your mind right now as I speak to you?" Kenji became aware that even as the master was talking, part of his mind was thinking about what he would say in response. Part was judging the teaching, and part was planning what he would do after the tea ceremony ended. I'm not fully here, Master. Even now, even when I'm trying to listen, my mind is scattered. This is the human condition," Thich Nhat Hanh said gently. "The mind has been trained to always be somewhere else. We have forgotten how to simply be where we are. But presence is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. It's your natural state. In your own life, notice how often your mind time travels. Notice how often you're rehashing old conversations, replaying past mistakes, or rehearsing future scenarios. Notice how often you're anywhere except right here, right now. This constant mental wandering is not making you more productive or prepared. It's stealing your life from you, moment by moment." The master taught Kenji a simple practice. For the next week, do one thing at a time with complete attention. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you listen, just listen. Don't try to multitask your way through life. Single task your way into presence. But this is more than just a technique. This is about recognizing that each moment contains everything you need. When you're fully present with washing dishes, the washing becomes a meditation. When you're completely attentive while walking, each step becomes a prayer. When you listen to someone with your whole being, the conversation becomes sacred. Kenji began to practice this way of living. At first, it felt strange and unnatural. His mind kept wanting to jump ahead, to plan, to analyze, to escape into mental busyness. But gradually, something beautiful began to happen. Colors became more vivid. Food tasted richer. Conversations became deeper. Even mundane activities took on a quality of aliveness he had never experienced before. I want you to try this right now as you're listening. Instead of thinking about what comes next or analyzing what you've heard so far, simply be present with the sound of these words. Notice the quality of your breathing. Feel the surface you're sitting or lying on. Notice any sounds around you. This is not a distraction from the teaching, this is the teaching. This moment, exactly as it is your life. One day, Kenji came to the master with tears in his eyes. "Master," he said, "something extraordinary happened today. I was sweeping the temple courtyard, completely absorbed in the movement of the broom, the sound of the leaves, the feeling of my feet on the ground. Suddenly, I realized I had disappeared. There was no Kenji sweeping, there was just sweeping happening. No one thinking about sweeping, just pure activity. It was the most peaceful moment of my life." Thich Nhat smiled. "Now you understand. When you are completely present, the separate self that suffers dissolves. There is no one to be anxious because there is only this moment. There is no one to be lonely because there is only this breath. There is no one to be incomplete because there is only this perfect, ever-changing now." This is what Zen calls mindfulness. Not thinking about the present moment, but being fully absorbed in it. It's the difference between thinking about swimming and actually diving into the water. When you're truly present, there's no commentary, no analysis, no judgment. There's just pure, immediate experience. In our modern world, we've been conditioned to believe that thinking more will solve our problems. But in Zen, we discover that thinking less, being more, is where peace is found. The mind that's always planning, analyzing, and commenting is the same mind that creates most of our suffering. This doesn't mean you stop planning or thinking altogether. It means you do these activities with presence rather than being lost in them. When it's time to plan, you plan with full attention. When it's time to act, you act with complete presence. When it's time to rest, you rest without mental commentary. What would change in your life if you could be fully present for just 1 hour each day? What would shift if you could eat one meal, have one conversation, or take one walk with complete attention? You might discover that the peace you've been seeking in the future is actually available right now, in this very moment. Kenji's transformation continued as he learned to live more and more in the present. He discovered that presence wasn't just a spiritual practice, it was a way of loving life. Every moment became an opportunity to wake up, to appreciate, to connect with the profound mystery of existence. But as Kenji deepened his practice of presence, he began to notice something else. Even when he was fully present, there were still patterns of suffering that seemed to repeat themselves. Old hurts would surface, familiar anxieties would arise, and he found himself caught in the same mental loops he had experienced for years. "Master," he asked one day, "I'm learning to be present, but I still feel trapped by my own mind. There are thoughts and emotions that keep coming back, no matter how mindful I become. How do I find the root of these patterns? How do I heal what feels so deeply stuck?" Master Thich Nhat nodded knowingly. "Ah, now you are ready for the deeper investigation. You have learned to be present with what arises, but now you must learn to see where it arises from. Let me tell you about a master who discovered the source of all suffering, and how understanding your true nature can set you free from every mental prison you have created." Master Yunmen's voice grew softer as he began the next teaching. There was once a monk named Ryokan who came to the great master Bankei in a state of deep desperation. For 20 years, Ryokan had been plagued by the same destructive thoughts and emotions. Anger would consume him over the smallest irritations. Jealousy would eat at him when he saw others succeed. Fear would paralyze him whenever he faced uncertainty. Master Bankei, Ryokan pleaded, I have tried every meditation technique, every spiritual practice, every method of self-improvement I could find, but these same patterns keep returning. It's as if there's something broken at my very core that I cannot fix. Where do these thoughts come from? Why do they have such power over me? Think about this in your own life. What thoughts or emotions keep returning no matter how much you work on yourself? What patterns of suffering feel so familiar they seem to be part of your identity? What mental habits feel so deeply rooted that you've begun to believe they're just who you are? Master Bankei looked at Ryokan with infinite patience. Show me this anger you speak of. Bring it here so I can see it. Ryokan was confused. I'm not angry right now, Master. But when someone criticizes me, or when things don't go my way, then the anger arises. So this anger is not here now? Bankei asked. No, Master. Not at this moment. Then show me this jealousy you say torments you. Again, Ryokan had to admit, it's not here right now either, Master. But when I see others who have what I want, then the jealousy comes. And this fear that paralyzes you? Ryokan sat in silence, beginning to understand something profound. It's not here either, Master. These things only arise when certain conditions are met. Bankei smiled gently. So tell me, where do these thoughts and emotions come from? Do they arise from outside you and attack you? Do they exist somewhere waiting to pounce? Or do they spontaneously appear from nowhere? This question goes to the heart of Zen investigation. We spend so much time fighting our thoughts and emotions, trying to get rid of them or control them, that we never ask the fundamental question, where do they actually come from? And more importantly, what is it that remains constant while they come and go? Ryokan sat in deep contemplation. I don't know, Master. They seem to just appear in my mind, but I don't know from where. Look more deeply, Bankei encouraged. Before the anger arises, what is there? Before the jealousy appears, what exists? Before the fear manifests, what remains? Ryokan closed his eyes and investigated his own experience with radical honesty. He looked for the source of his thoughts and emotions the way you might look for the source of a river. And what he discovered changed everything about how he understood himself. Master, he whispered, before any thought or emotion arises, there is just awareness. Just a clear, open space that knows whatever appears. The anger doesn't come from anywhere. It just appears in this space and then disappears again. The jealousy doesn't have a location. It just manifests and then vanishes. Even my sense of being someone who has these problems only arises and passes away in this same awareness. Now you are beginning to understand, Bankei said. This clear awareness that you speak of, this is what I call the unborn mind. It is unborn because it was never created. It is undying because it cannot be destroyed. It is the space in which all experiences arise and pass away, but it itself is never touched by what appears within it. This is one of the most profound discoveries you can make about yourself. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not even your experiences. You are the aware space in which all of these things appear and disappear. Just as a movie screen is not damaged by the fires and explosions that appear on it, your true nature is never actually disturbed by the dramas that play out in your mind. Think about this right now in your own experience. As you listen to these words, notice that there is something aware of the listening. There is something that knows you are having thoughts about what you're hearing. There is something that recognizes any emotions that might be arising. What is that something? Can you find its edges? Can you locate where it begins and ends? Ryokan spent months investigating this discovery. He began to see that every form of suffering was based on a case of mistaken identity. He had been identifying with the temporary contents of his awareness rather than recognizing himself as the awareness itself. When anger appeared, instead of thinking I am angry, he learned to recognize anger is appearing in awareness. When sadness arose, instead of believing I am sad, he understood sadness is arising and passing away in the space of knowing. When fear manifested, instead of becoming I am afraid, he saw fear as just another temporary visitor in the vast space of his being. This is not just philosophical understanding. This is a practical investigation you can do right now. Whatever you're experiencing in this moment, whether it's interest, boredom, excitement, anxiety, or anything else, notice that there is something aware of that experience. That which is aware is not itself the experience. It's the unchanging background against which all experiences come and go. Master Bankei taught Ryokan, your original face, your true nature, is this unborn mind. It has no characteristics, no personality, no problems. It is pure awareness, pure knowing, pure being. All the stories you tell about yourself, all the identities you cling to, all the problems you think you have, these are just temporary appearances in this boundless space. But here's what's truly liberating about this understanding. If you are not actually the one who is broken, then there is no one who needs fixing. If you are the awareness in which brokenness appears rather than being the broken one, then healing happens naturally when you stop identifying with what needs to be healed. This doesn't mean your human experiences aren't real or don't matter. It means you can engage with them from a place of freedom rather than a place of identification. You can feel sadness without becoming a sad person. You can experience fear without believing you are fearful. You can have problems without thinking you are problematic. What would change in your life if you truly understood that you are not the one who suffers, but rather the space in which suffering appears? What would shift if you realized that your deepest identity is this unborn, undying awareness that can never actually be harmed by anything that happens within it? Ryokan's transformation was profound but subtle. He didn't become a different person. He simply stopped mistaking himself for the temporary experiences that arose in his awareness. The same thoughts and emotions that had once tormented him continued to appear, but they no longer had the power to convince him that he was broken or damaged. One day, Ryokan came to Master Bankei with a final question. Master, I understand now that I am this unborn awareness, and I no longer suffer from my thoughts and emotions the way I used to. But I notice that I still judge myself harshly sometimes. I still feel unworthy or unlovable. How do I learn to truly accept and love this human experience I'm having? Bankei's eyes sparkled with recognition. Ah, you have discovered the last frontier of healing. It is one thing to understand your true nature intellectually, and another thing entirely to love yourself unconditionally as you are. Let me tell you about a master who found the secret of radical self-acceptance, and how the moon's reflection in water taught him to embrace every aspect of his humanity with perfect love. Master Yunmen continued with deep compassion in his voice. There was once a monk named Joshu who came to the great master Dogen carrying a burden heavier than any physical weight, the burden of self-hatred. Despite years of spiritual practice and deep understanding, Joshu could not find a way to love himself. Master Dogen, Joshu confessed with tears in his eyes, "I understand that I am awareness itself, not the temporary experiences that arise within it. I no longer suffer from my thoughts and emotions the way I once did. But there is something deeper that torments me. I cannot accept myself as I am. When I make mistakes, I hate myself. When I fail to live up to my ideals, I feel disgusted with who I am. When I see my flaws and limitations, I wish I could be someone else entirely. How can I find peace when I am my own worst enemy?" How deeply this resonates with the human condition. How many of us have achieved some degree of spiritual understanding, yet still struggle with the most basic human need, to love and accept ourselves exactly as we are? How often do you find yourself being kind and compassionate to others while maintaining a harsh, critical inner dialogue with yourself? Master Dogen led Joshu to a quiet pond in the temple garden during the full moon. The water was perfectly still, and the moon's reflection shone as clearly as if another moon had fallen into the water. "Look at this reflection," Dogen said quietly. "Tell me, is this moon in the water real or false?" Joshu studied the reflection carefully. "It's just a reflection, Master. The real moon is in the sky. This one in the water is not real." "But can you see it clearly?" Dogen asked. "Yes, Master. I can see it perfectly." "Does it give light?" "Yes. It illuminates the water around it." "Does it move and change as clouds pass over the real moon?" "Yes, Master. It responds to everything the real moon does." "Then in what way is it false?" Dogen asked with a gentle smile. Joshu sat in contemplation, staring at the reflection. Slowly, understanding began to dawn. "Master, the reflection is not false. It's just not separate from the original moon. It's the same light, the same beauty, just expressed in a different medium." "Now you begin to understand," Dogen said. "You have been looking at yourself as if you are merely a flawed reflection of some perfect ideal that exists elsewhere. But you are not a poor copy of perfection. You are perfection expressing itself as this unique human being, complete with all your apparent flaws and limitations. This is the revolutionary understanding of radical self-acceptance in Zen Buddhism. You are not broken and in need of fixing. You are not incomplete and in need of improvement. You are the perfect expression of life, appearing as this particular human experience, including everything you've been taught to reject about yourself. Think about this deeply in your own life. What parts of yourself have you been trying to fix, change, or eliminate? What aspects of your personality, your history, your current struggles have you decided are unacceptable? What if these very things you're fighting against are not obstacles to your wholeness, but expressions of it? "But Master," Joshu protested, "surely my anger is not perfect. Surely my jealousy is not an expression of wholeness. Surely my fears and limitations are not beautiful manifestations of life." Dogen smiled and stirred the water gently with a stick. "Watch what happens to the moon's reflection when the water is disturbed." The reflection broke into countless fragments, rippling and dancing across the surface. But even in its fragmented state, each ripple still carried the moon's light. "Do you see?" Dogen asked. "Even when the reflection is disturbed, even when it's broken into pieces, it's still the same moon's light. Your anger, your jealousy, your fears, these are just ripples on the surface of your being. They are not separate from your essential nature. They are that same awareness expressing itself through the conditions of this human life. This doesn't mean you celebrate or encourage destructive behaviors. It means you stop adding the extra layer of self-hatred on top of your natural human experiences. When anger arises, you can address it skillfully without hating yourself for being angry. When fear appears, you can work with it compassionately without condemning yourself for being afraid. In your own experience right now, notice any self-judgment that might be present. Maybe you're criticizing yourself for not being more spiritual, for not having figured life out yet, for still struggling with the same old patterns. What would it feel like to simply acknowledge these judgments without judging the judging? What would shift if you could see even your self-criticism as just another wave on the ocean of your being? Master Dogen taught Jisho a practice that transformed his relationship with himself. Every morning when you wake up, before getting out of bed, place your hand on your heart and say, "Good morning, beloved. Thank you for being exactly who you are in this moment." Every evening before sleep, do the same thing. "Good night, beloved. You have done your best today, and that is enough." But this practice went deeper than words. Dogen encouraged Jisho to investigate the very one who was doing the judging. Who is it that decides you are not good enough? Who is it that knows your flaws and limitations? Who is it that wants you to be different than you are? Jisho discovered something remarkable through this investigation. The voice that criticized him was itself just another temporary appearance in awareness. The judge was not his true identity any more than the things he was judging. Both the critic and the criticized were just passing experiences in the vast space of his being. This led to an even deeper recognition. If both the one who judges and the one who is judged are temporary appearances in awareness, then who or what remains? What he found was simply this moment of pure being, free from both criticism and defense, free from both rejection and acceptance. Just this, just awareness, being aware, life living itself, existence existing. This is the ultimate freedom of radical self-acceptance. It's not that you work on accepting yourself until you finally succeed. It's the recognition that the very idea of acceptance and rejection are just concepts appearing in the same awareness that you are. You don't need to accept yourself because there is no separate self to accept. There is just this seamless flow of being that includes everything. What would change in your life if you truly understood that you are not a person who sometimes feels peaceful, but rather peace itself, temporarily experiencing what it's like to be human? What would shift if you realized you're not someone trying to become whole, but wholeness itself, exploring what it feels like to seem fragmented? Jisho's practice deepened over many months. He learned to greet each aspect of his experience, the beautiful and the ugly, the noble and the petty, the wise and the foolish, with the same warm recognition you might give an old friend. Not because he had to, but because he began to see that it was all the same life appearing in countless forms. The anger that once filled him with shame became a teacher showing him where his boundaries were needed. The jealousy he had despised became a pointer showing him what he truly valued. The fear that had paralyzed him became energy he could use to pay attention and respond skillfully to life's challenges. This is not about becoming a better person or achieving some ideal state of self-love. This is about recognizing that the love you seek from yourself is not something you need to generate. It's what you are. You are not someone who needs to learn to love yourself. You are love itself. Temporarily forgetting your own nature and then remembering it again. But even as Jisho found this profound self-acceptance, he noticed that old resentments toward others would still surface. The hurt from past betrayals, the anger toward those who had harmed him, the bitterness about unfair treatment. These feelings still had the power to disturb his peace. "Master," he asked Dogen one day, "I am learning to love and accept myself. But what about all the people who have hurt me? What about the resentments I carry toward others? How do I find peace when there are still people I cannot forgive?" Dogen looked at him with eyes full of understanding. "Ah, you have discovered that self-love alone is not complete freedom. The heart that cannot forgive others will always be partially closed, even to itself. Let me tell you about a master who learned that forgiveness is not something you do for others. It is the natural expression of understanding your true relationship to everything that appears in your awareness." Master Yunmen's voice took on a quality of deep understanding as he began the next teaching. There was once a monk named Genshin who came to the fierce master Linji with a heart burning with hatred. Years earlier, Genshin's family had been destroyed by a corrupt official who stole their land and left them in poverty. His parents died from the stress and hardship, and Genshin had carried this rage like a fire in his chest ever since. "Master Linji," Genshin said through gritted teeth, "everyone tells me I must forgive this man who destroyed my family. They say forgiveness will set me free, but how can I forgive someone who caused such suffering? How can I let go of this anger when justice was never served? This man is evil and deserves my hatred." Think about this in your own life. Who are the people you cannot forgive? What hurts from your past still burn when you remember them? What injustices still fuel your anger years or even decades after they occurred? How much of your mental and emotional energy is consumed by resentments that the other person may not even remember? Master Linji looked at Genshin with fierce compassion. "Show me this man you hate. Bring him here so I can see him." Genshin was confused. He is not here, Master. He lives far away in the capital." "So this man, who is destroying your peace, is not actually present?" Linji asked. "No, Master. But when I think of him, when I remember what he did—" "Ah," Linji interrupted, "so it is not the man himself who is causing your suffering in this moment, but your thoughts about him. Tell me, when you are not thinking about him, where is this hatred?" Genshin sat in silence, beginning to understand something profound, but still resistant to letting go of his anger. "It's not there when I'm not thinking about him, Master. But surely I have a right to my anger. What he did was truly wrong." Linji picked up an arrow from the wall and suddenly thrust it toward Genshin, stopping just inches from his chest. Genshin recoiled in shock. "If someone shoots you with an arrow," Linji said calmly, "do you then pick up that arrow and stab yourself with it repeatedly every day for the rest of your life?" "No, Master. That would be madness." "Then why do you continue to wound yourself with the arrow of this man's actions? Why do you choose to poison yourself daily with hatred for something that happened years ago?" This is the essence of what Buddha taught about forgiveness. When someone hurts you, that is the first arrow. When you hold on to resentment, replay the hurt over and over, and keep that anger alive in your heart, you are shooting yourself with the second arrow again and again. The other person shot you once, but you continue shooting yourself every day. But here's what most people misunderstand about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's not about deciding they were right or excusing their behavior. It's not about reconciling with them or pretending the hurt never happened. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the prison of your own resentment. In your own life, notice how much mental space your resentments occupy. Notice how often you replay old arguments, imagine confrontations with people who wronged you, or feel your body tense up when certain names are mentioned. All of this is you shooting yourself with arrows that were fired long ago. Genshin struggled with this teaching. But Master, if I forgive him, doesn't that mean he wins? Doesn't that mean what he did was acceptable? Linji laughed, not with cruelty, but with the recognition of a common delusion. You think your hatred is punishing him? You think your anger reaches across the distance and makes him suffer? Your resentment exists entirely within your own mind and heart. You are the only one being punished by it. This was a revolutionary insight for Genshin. He had been carrying his hatred like a weapon he planned to use someday, not realizing that he was the only one being wounded by it. His resentment was like holding a burning coal, intending to throw it at someone else, but burning only his own hand. Forgiveness, Linji explained, is not a moral duty you owe to others. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is the recognition that continuing to carry poison in your heart serves no one, including yourself. It is choosing your own freedom over the satisfaction of staying angry. But how do I forgive when the pain still feels so real? Genshin asked. Linji's answer was both simple and profound. You don't forgive the person, you forgive the thought. Every time the resentment arises, you recognize it as just another temporary visitor in your awareness. You don't fight it or feed it. You simply observe it with the same detachment you would observe a cloud passing through the sky. This is the practical path of forgiveness in Zen Buddhism. You don't need to feel warm feelings toward those who hurt you. You don't need to wish them well or want to be friends with them. You simply stop giving your life energy to thoughts that create suffering in your own mind and heart. Think about this in your own experience. What would change in your life if you stopped rehearsing old hurts? What mental and emotional energy would be freed up if you released the resentments you've been carrying? What would become possible if you were no longer bound by the past actions of others? Genshin began to practice this form of forgiveness. When thoughts of the corrupt official arose, instead of feeding them with more anger and analysis, he would simply notice, anger is arising. When the desire for revenge surfaced, he would observe, revenge fantasies are appearing. When the story of injustice played in his mind, he would recognize, victim stories are manifesting. Gradually, something beautiful began to happen. The thoughts and emotions still arose, but they no longer had the power to hijack his entire state of being. They became like weather passing through the sky of his awareness, temporary, impersonal, and ultimately harmless. But the deepest transformation came when Genshin made an even more profound discovery. In investigating his anger, he began to see that the one who was angry was itself just another temporary appearance in awareness. There was no solid, permanent self being victimized by the corrupt official. There was just this flow of experience, including the experience of remembering past hurt. This led to the ultimate forgiveness, not forgiving the other person, but recognizing that there was never actually a separate self to be hurt in the first place. The story of victim and victimizer was just that, a story appearing in the same awareness that included everything else. This doesn't minimize real harm or trauma. It doesn't mean you become passive in the face of injustice. It means you can respond to harm from a place of freedom rather than reactivity, from wisdom rather than woundedness. You can take appropriate action to protect yourself and others without being driven by the emotional charge of unresolved resentment. What would it feel like to be free from every grudge you've ever held? What would shift in your relationships if you no longer carried the accumulated hurts from your past? What energy would be available for creating something beautiful in your life if it wasn't being drained by old resentments? Genshin's practice of forgiveness became a daily liberation. He discovered that forgiveness wasn't something he did once and then was finished with. It was a moment-by-moment choice to not feed the thoughts that created suffering. Each time he chose presence over resentment, peace over the story of being wronged, he experienced a small awakening. One day, Genshin received news that the corrupt official had died. He was surprised to discover that he felt neither satisfaction nor sorrow, just a quiet recognition that another human being's story had come to an end. The hatred that had once consumed him was nowhere to be found. "Master," he said to Linji, "I understand now that forgiveness was never about him. It was about freeing myself from my own mental prison. But I notice there's still something missing in my life. Even though I've found peace with my past and acceptance of myself, I still feel restless, like I'm not fully alive. What is the secret to feeling truly present and engaged with life?" Linji smiled knowingly. "Ah, you have cleared the inner landscape, but now you must learn to inhabit it fully. Let me tell you about a master who discovered that peace without presence is just another form of sleep, and how the practice of true stillness can awaken you to the vibrant aliveness that exists in every moment." Master Yunmen's voice became as quiet as a whisper, yet somehow more penetrating than before. There was once a monk named Myoan who came to the great master Huangbo with a mind that never stopped moving. Despite years of practice and significant insights, Myoan lived in a constant state of mental agitation. His thoughts raced from one thing to another like a monkey jumping between branches, never finding rest. "Master Huangbo," Myoan said desperately, "I have learned to accept my suffering. I have forgiven those who hurt me. I even understand my true nature as awareness itself. But my mind never stops. There is constant chatter, endless commentary, perpetual analysis of everything that happens. I feel like I'm living inside a noisy machine that I cannot turn off. How can I find real peace when there is no silence anywhere inside me?" How familiar this sounds to our modern experience. Even when we understand spiritual teachings intellectually, even when we've resolved old emotional wounds, there can still be this relentless mental activity that prevents us from truly resting. How often do you find yourself exhausted, not by physical activity, but by the sheer volume of thinking you do each day? Master Huangbo looked at Myoan with infinite patience, then did something unexpected. He said absolutely nothing. He simply sat in perfect stillness, his eyes soft but alert, his body completely at rest. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Myoan fidgeted, waiting for the teaching to begin, wondering when the master would speak. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, Myoan burst out, "Master, when will you teach me about finding peace?" Huangbo smiled, the gentlest of smiles. "I have been teaching you for the past 20 minutes. You just haven't been listening." Myoan was confused. "But you haven't said anything, Master." "Exactly," Huangbo replied. "In silence, there is the most profound teaching. In stillness, there is the deepest wisdom. You have been so busy waiting for words that you missed the wordless instruction. You have been so focused on getting somewhere that you missed arriving here. This is the essence of finding peace in stillness. We've been conditioned to believe that wisdom comes through accumulating more information, more techniques, more understanding. But in Zen, we discover that the deepest peace comes not from adding something to our experience, but from subtracting ourselves from the noise we constantly create. Think about this in your own life. When was the last time you sat in complete silence without any agenda? When did you last experience stillness without trying to achieve something through it? Most of us are so uncomfortable with silence that we immediately fill it with music, podcasts, thoughts, or activities. We've become afraid of the very thing that could heal us most deeply. But Master, Myoan protested, when I sit in silence, my mind becomes even more agitated. The thoughts get louder, not quieter. The stillness just makes me more aware of how chaotic my inner world is. Huangbo nodded with understanding. Yes, this is what happens at first. When you stop the constant external stimulation, you become aware of the internal storm that was always there. This is not a problem to be solved. This is the beginning of healing. You cannot calm something you are not aware of. This is a crucial understanding about stillness practice. The goal is not to stop thoughts or achieve some blank state of mind. The goal is to become intimately familiar with the nature of your own awareness. In stillness, you begin to notice the difference between awareness and the contents of awareness. Huangbo taught Myoan a simple but profound practice. Sit each day for a period of time without any goal except to be present with whatever arises. Don't try to quiet your mind. Don't try to achieve any particular state. Simply sit and observe the constant dance of thoughts, sensations, and emotions without getting caught up in any of them. But this is more than just a meditation technique. This is about discovering your true relationship to mental activity. In stillness, you begin to see that thoughts are not solid things that happen to you. They are transparent movements that arise and dissolve in the space of awareness that you are. In your own experience right now, as you listen to these words, notice that there is something that remains constant while thoughts come and go. There is something that is aware of whatever you're thinking about this teaching. That constant awareness is what Huangbo was pointing Myoan toward, not the absence of mental activity, but the spacious presence that contains all activity. Myoan began to practice this way of sitting. At first, it was exactly as he had described. His mind seemed even more chaotic when he wasn't distracting himself from it. But Huangbo had prepared him for this. The master explained that this was like cleaning a dirty room. At first, everything looks messier because you're actually seeing what was there all along. Gradually, something began to shift. Myoan started to notice that even in the midst of mental chaos, there was something utterly still at the center of his being. It wasn't that his thoughts stopped coming, but he began to recognize himself as the space in which thoughts appeared rather than the thinker of thoughts. This is the profound discovery that stillness practice offers. You don't become still. You recognize the stillness that you already are. You don't achieve peace. You remember the peace that was never actually disturbed by the surface waves of mental activity. What would change in your life if you had a direct, felt experience of this inner stillness? What would shift if you knew, not just intellectually but experientially, that beneath all the mental noise there is profound peace that can never be destroyed? Huangbo taught Myoan that true stillness is not the absence of activity, but the presence of pure awareness. A lake can have waves on its surface while remaining perfectly still in its depths. Similarly, you can have thoughts and emotions moving through your awareness while resting in the unmoving center of your being. One day, after months of practice, Myoan came to Huangbo with tears of gratitude. "Master," he said, "I finally understand. I was looking for silence as if it was something I could achieve or acquire, but silence is what I am. I was seeking stillness as if it were a state I could reach. But stillness is my very nature. All this time, I was looking for what was already here. Huangbo smiled. Now you understand why I taught you in silence from the very beginning. Words can point to the truth, but only silence can reveal it directly. Only in stillness can you discover who you really are beneath all the noise you mistake for yourself. This discovery transformed how Myoan lived his daily life. He no longer needed to escape to quiet places to find peace, because he carried that peace within him everywhere. He could be in the midst of activity while remaining rooted in stillness. He could engage with the world fully, while never losing touch with the silent center of his being. But this understanding brought Myoan to a new question. He had found peace in stillness, but he wondered how to maintain this awareness while living an active life in the world. How could he integrate this profound stillness into ordinary activities like work, relationships, and daily responsibilities? Master, he asked Huangbo, I have discovered this beautiful stillness in formal practice, but how do I live from this place? How do I bring this peace into my everyday life without losing it in the busyness and demands of the world? Huangbo's eyes twinkled with the recognition of a student ready for the final teaching. Ah, now you ask the most important question of all. You have found the treasure, but now you must learn to spend it wisely. Let me tell you about a master who discovered that true spirituality is not about escaping the world, but about bringing awakened awareness into every ordinary moment of human life. Master Yunmen's voice took on a warm, familial quality as he began this teaching. There was once a remarkable man named Layman who lived during the Tang dynasty. Unlike most spiritual seekers of his time, Pang was not a monk. He was a householder, a husband, father, and businessman who had to navigate the demands of family life, work responsibilities, and social obligations while pursuing spiritual awakening. Pang had achieved profound insights through his practice. He understood the nature of suffering, had found peace in stillness, and recognized his true nature as awareness itself. But he faced a challenge that many of us face today. How do you maintain spiritual awareness while changing diapers, paying bills, dealing with difficult customers, and managing the countless mundane tasks that make up everyday life? Think about this in your own experience. How often have you felt peaceful and centered during meditation or quiet reflection, only to lose that sense of presence the moment you step back into your busy life? How many times have you wondered if true spiritual awakening is only possible for those who can retreat from the world entirely? Layman Pang struggled with this question for years. He would have profound experiences of stillness and clarity during his morning meditation. But by noon he would be caught up in worry about business matters, frustration with family dynamics, and the endless stream of practical concerns that demanded his attention. One day, Pang visited the great Master Mazu with his dilemma. "Master," he said, "I have touched something beautiful in my practice, a deep peace and understanding that feels like my true home, but I lose it so quickly when I return to ordinary life. How can someone like me, with worldly responsibilities, maintain spiritual awareness? Should I abandon my family and business to become a monk?" Master Mazu looked at Pang with eyes full of understanding. "Tell me," he asked, "where is this ordinary life that is separate from spiritual life? Show me where the sacred ends and the mundane begins." Pang was puzzled. "But Master, surely chopping wood and carrying water are different from meditation and contemplation. Surely dealing with money and managing household affairs are different from spiritual practice. Mazu smiled. When you chop wood, who is chopping? When you carry water, who is carrying? When you count money, who is counting? As Pang contemplated these questions, he began to understand something revolutionary. The same awareness that was present during his meditation was also present when he was working, parenting, and handling daily responsibilities. There was no separate spiritual self that needed to be maintained. There was only this one awareness expressing itself through every activity. This is the profound teaching of what Zen calls ordinary mind. Spiritual awakening doesn't mean transcending human life, it means fully inhabiting it with awakened awareness. The goal is not to escape the mundane world, but to recognize the sacred dimension that is always present within it. In your own life, consider this. What if washing dishes could be as profound a spiritual practice as sitting meditation? What if having a difficult conversation with your boss could be an opportunity for awakening? What if managing your finances could be a form of mindfulness practice? Mazu taught Pang a simple but transformative approach. Ordinary mind is the way. This doesn't mean being unconscious or automatic in your daily activities. It means bringing the same quality of presence and awareness that you cultivate in formal practice to every moment of your life. When you're cooking, be completely present with the cooking. Feel the vegetables in your hands, smell the spices, hear the sizzle in the pan. When you're listening to someone speak, give them your complete attention without planning your response. When you're walking from one place to another, feel your feet touching the ground with each step. But this practice goes deeper than simple mindfulness. Layman Pang discovered that every ordinary activity could become a gateway to profound realization. When he swept the floor, he wasn't just cleaning, he was participating in the universal activity of bringing order to chaos. When he prepared food for his family, he wasn't just cooking, he was expressing love through the transformation of raw ingredients into nourishment. This perspective transformed Pang's entire relationship with daily life. Instead of seeing worldly responsibilities as obstacles to spiritual growth, he began to see them as perfect opportunities for practicing presence, compassion, and wisdom. His business dealings became exercises in honesty and integrity. His family relationships became laboratories for unconditional love and patience. What would change in your life if you approached every task, no matter how mundane, as a spiritual practice? What would shift if you saw every interaction, even the difficult ones, as opportunities to embody wisdom and compassion? Pang's family became legendary for their integrated spiritual approach to ordinary life. His wife would practice awakened awareness while managing the household. His daughter would embody Zen wisdom while helping customers in their shop. They demonstrated that enlightenment doesn't require special robes, titles, or living situations. It requires only the willingness to be fully present with whatever life brings. One day, a visiting monk challenged Pang. How can you claim to be spiritually advanced when you're so caught up in worldly concerns? How can you pursue awakening while being tied down by family and business obligations? Pang's response became famous throughout China. My daily activities are not different from those of others. I harmonize with whatever circumstances arise. I don't choose what to accept or reject. Nothing is either pleasing or disagreeable. I have no goals or desires. When purple clouds appear in the sky, I don't keep a needle to mend them. My supernatural power and marvelous activity is drawing water and carrying firewood. This response captures the essence of integrated spiritual living. It's not about having extraordinary experiences or achieving special states of consciousness. It's about recognizing the extraordinary nature of ordinary experience when approached with full presence and open awareness. In practical terms, this means that your spiritual practice doesn't have to be separate from your daily responsibilities. Every conversation can be an opportunity to practice deep listening. Every challenge can be a chance to develop patience and wisdom. Every mundane task can be a form of moving meditation when approached with full attention. Think about your own daily routine. What would it look like to approach your morning shower as a mindfulness practice? How might your commute to work become a time for cultivating presence rather than stress? What if preparing meals, cleaning your home, or doing laundry could be as spiritually nourishing as any formal meditation? Layman Pang's approach also extended to difficult emotions and challenging circumstances. When business was slow, instead of anxiety, he cultivated acceptance and creative problem-solving. When family conflicts arose, instead of reactivity, he practiced patience and skillful communication. When illness or loss occurred, instead of resistance, he developed equanimity and deeper compassion. This is the mature expression of spiritual understanding, not the ability to avoid life's difficulties, but the capacity to meet them with wisdom, grace, and presence. It's the recognition that every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, can deepen your understanding and expand your capacity for love. But Pang's most profound teaching came near the end of his life. As he grew older, he began to prepare for death with the same ordinary mind he had brought to living. He gave away his possessions not out of detachment, but out of love. He said goodbye to his family not with sorrow, but with gratitude for the privilege of sharing life with them. One day, Pang felt his death approaching. He gathered his family around him and said, "Life is like a shadow, an echo, like dew on the grass. When the time comes to go, one must go." He then laid down peacefully and died with the same serene presence he had cultivated in life. This story reveals the ultimate integration of wisdom into daily life, the recognition that birth and death, joy and sorrow, success and failure are all equally expressions of the same seamless reality. When you truly understand this, every day becomes precious, not because it might be your last, but because it's an opportunity to fully participate in the magnificent ordinariness of being human. What would your life look like if you approached each day with this kind of appreciation? How would your relationships change if you recognized every interaction as a sacred encounter? What would shift in your work if you saw it as a way to serve life rather than just earn money? Master Yunmen paused in his storytelling, allowing the depth of Layman Pang's example to settle into Chen's understanding. But young Chen had one final question that went to the heart of human experience: how to continually renew this awakened approach to life when old patterns inevitably resurface. "Master," Chen said thoughtfully, "I am beginning to understand how to bring spiritual awareness into daily life. But what about when I forget? What about when I fall back into old patterns of reactivity, unconsciousness, or suffering? How do I keep this wisdom alive when life becomes overwhelming or when I simply lose my way?" Master Yunmen smiled with the recognition of someone who understood the very heart of the spiritual journey. "Ah, you ask about the most essential practice of all, the practice of beginning again. Let me tell you about a master who discovered that wisdom is not about never falling down, but about how gracefully you can stand back up, and how every moment offers the opportunity for a completely fresh start. Master Yunmen's voice grew soft with the wisdom of countless new beginnings as he shared the final teaching. There was once an American student named Richard who came to study with the great master Suzuki Roshi in California. Richard had been practicing Zen for over 15 years. He had read every important text, completed long retreats, and could discuss the most subtle philosophical points with impressive knowledge. But Richard came to Suzuki Roshi with a heavy heart. "Master," he confessed, "I feel like I've lost something essential. When I first began practicing, everything felt fresh and alive. Each meditation was an adventure, each teaching a revelation. But now, after all these years, I feel stale and mechanical. I go through the motions of practice, but the magic is gone. How can I recapture that sense of wonder and discovery?" How deeply this speaks to the human experience of any meaningful journey. Whether it's a spiritual practice, a relationship, a career, or life itself. How often do we start with enthusiasm and freshness, only to find ourselves going through the motions months or years later? How often do we mistake familiarity for mastery and lose the very quality that made our journey worthwhile in the first place? Suzuki Roshi looked at Richard with eyes full of compassion and said something that would become one of the most famous teachings in Western Zen. "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." Think about this in your own experience. When you first learned to drive, you were intensely present with every aspect of the process, the feel of the steering wheel, the pressure of the pedals, the awareness of other cars. Now you probably drive on autopilot, sometimes arriving at your destination with little memory of the journey. The same thing happens with many areas of our lives, including our spiritual growth. But what if this apparent loss of freshness is not actually a problem to be solved, but an invitation to go deeper? What if the feeling of staleness is simply life calling you to approach familiar territory with new eyes? Richard struggled with this teaching. "But Master," he protested, "I've been meditating the same way for 15 years. I've heard these teachings countless times. How can I possibly approach them with beginner's mind when I already know what to expect?" Suzuki Roshi smiled gently. "Show me this person who knows. Bring me this expert who has nothing left to discover." Richard sat in silence, suddenly realizing something profound. Every time he sat down to meditate, he was sitting down as a different person than he had been the day before. Every time he heard a teaching, he was hearing it with the accumulated wisdom and experience of everything that had happened since he last heard it. The problem wasn't that the practice had become stale, the problem was that he had stopped showing up freshly for it. This is the essence of beginner's mind in Zen Buddhism. It's not about pretending you don't know things you've learned or acting naive about your experience. It's about approaching each moment with the openness, curiosity, and wonder that naturally arise when you're not burdened by the assumption that you already know what's going to happen. In your own life, what would change if you approached tomorrow morning as if you had never experienced a morning before? What would shift if you listened to your partner, your children, or your friends as if you were hearing them for the first time? What would become possible if you approached your work, your challenges, even your problems with fresh eyes? Suzuki Roshi taught Richard a profound practice that transformed his understanding of renewal. Each morning, when you wake up, before getting out of bed, ask yourself, who is this person waking up today? What is this life that's about to begin? Don't answer with the stories from yesterday. Look with fresh eyes at the consciousness that's emerging in this moment. This practice goes to the heart of what it means to embrace each day as a new beginning. It's the recognition that the person who wakes up each morning is not exactly the same person who went to sleep the night before. Every night, you die to who you were. Every morning, you're born into who you're becoming. But this renewal isn't just about daily cycles. Beginner's mind can be applied to any moment when you notice you've become mechanical, unconscious, or trapped in old patterns. The moment you recognize that you're operating on autopilot is the moment you can choose to wake up again. Richard discovered that this approach transformed not just his meditation practice but his entire way of living. When he felt stuck in an argument with his wife, he would pause and ask, "What if I'd never had this conversation before? How would I listen differently?" When he encountered a familiar problem at work, he would wonder, "What am I not seeing because I think I already understand this situation?" This is the practical magic of beginner's mind. It allows you to find infinite depth in apparently ordinary experiences. It keeps life interesting and growth possible no matter how much you think you already know. It's the antidote to the spiritual pride that thinks enlightenment is a permanent achievement rather than a moment-by-moment choice to remain open and aware. What would your relationships look like if you approached the people closest to you with beginner's mind? How might your work change if you looked at familiar tasks with fresh curiosity? What would become possible in your spiritual practice if you released all your ideas about how advanced or undeveloped you are? One of the most beautiful aspects of beginner's mind is how it transforms failure and setbacks. When Richard would forget to be present, get caught in old reactive patterns, or feel like he had somehow failed in his practice, Suzuki Roshi would remind him, "Wonderful! Now you have the opportunity to begin again." Each moment of recognizing unconsciousness is a moment of waking up. This is perhaps the most liberating understanding of all. You don't have to wait until tomorrow to start fresh. You don't need to complete some grand transformation before you can begin living wisely. Every breath is a new beginning. Every moment of awareness is a fresh start. Every recognition that you've been lost in unconsciousness is an opportunity to return to presence. Richard's practice became a continuous dance of forgetting and remembering, falling asleep and waking up, getting caught in patterns and beginning again. But instead of seeing this as a failure to achieve some steady state of enlightenment, he learned to see it as the natural rhythm of conscious living. This understanding completely transformed Richard's relationship with himself and his spiritual journey. He stopped judging himself for not being consistently wise or present. He stopped comparing his practice to some imaginary ideal. Instead, he learned to appreciate the humility and freshness that comes with acknowledging that you're always a beginner when it comes to this moment, because this moment has never existed before. What would change in your life if you could embrace being a beginner? What would shift if you released the pressure to be an expert at living and instead approached each day with curiosity and openness? How would your relationship with failure change if you saw every mistake as simply an opportunity to begin again? Years later, when Richard had become a teacher himself, students would ask him about the secret to maintaining a fresh practice after decades of experience. His answer always reflected Suzuki Roshi's teaching: the expert thinks they know what's going to happen next. The beginner knows that anything is possible. The moment you think you've figured out life, you've stopped living it. This is the final and perhaps most important teaching in our journey together. No matter how much wisdom you've gained, how much healing you've experienced, or how much understanding you've developed, each moment offers the opportunity to discover something completely new about yourself and life. The goal is not to graduate from being human, but to become increasingly skillful at the art of living with awareness, compassion, and wonder. And so, dear friend, we come to the end of our journey together, though every ending is also a beginning. You now carry within you the ancient wisdom of masters who discovered that healing yourself without anyone else is not only possible, it's your birthright. Remember Chen's broken cup teaching you that suffering points toward wisdom. Remember Wei's discovery that wholeness was never actually missing. Remember the autumn leaf showing you how to flow with change. Remember that presence is always available. Forgiveness liberates you first, and ordinary moments contain infinite depth. But most importantly, remember that these are not just beautiful stories, they are invitations to live differently starting right now. Each breath offers you the choice to begin again with fresh awareness. Your healing journey continues with every moment you choose. Presence over distraction, acceptance over resistance, love over fear. You have everything you need within you already. Trust yourself, begin again. And remember, you were never broken to begin with.